Welcome, everyone. Let's take a moment to just welcome each other. And by welcoming, also confirming in our looking that we all carry this potential in our heart of wisdom and love. So let's take a moment to see the light in each other. The Buddha within, the Tara within. Of course, you can't demand your heart to open, but maybe we can invite our heart to open like a flower. And then also notice if there's something in your experience right now which seems to sabotage an open heart. And allow that also to be whatever it is, whatever you bring into this session. Just allow that to be. And then as a support for this opening of our hearts, we can, each of us, we can invite our mentors and teachers, lamas, the Buddha, Jesus. So we imagine them like angels coming and filling this virtual sacred space, our virtual temple here. How would it feel in this moment if you would feel really loved and held and safe? How would that feel? And maybe you can make a tiny baby step towards that. Yeah, maybe we can just slide from here into the meditation. And at one point, some of you have already the eyes closed, but at one point you might feel like closing your eyes. If you keep your eyes open, your gaze is relaxed without particularly looking at something. There's a shift from the head into the body. Welcoming the guests in the guest house of the body. And here in the beginning of our meditation, it's really about welcoming, letting things be as they are, softening into what you experience, softening with what is, and breathing. Appreciating that we're breathing together. And thoughts are recognized as thoughts. And it might be possible for you to emphasize them less as usual. And instead become curious about the felt sense of your body, the energies in your body. And remember that we are surrounded by the loving gaze of the Buddhas, the Dalai Lama, of Lama Zopa. And only if you find yourself emphasizing the narrative self, the stories and memories, words, when you emphasize that a lot or you get entangled, then you make this little move back, sliding back to your hands, to your belly, to the flow of the out and in breath. So we gravitate without any effort to present moment awareness, where we are together, where we meet from heart to heart. Softening, opening. And notice that within the experience of your body, there's maybe some areas which feel a bit more tense or painful. But there's also areas where there's more life, more openness, where the energies flow. And you allow yourself to find a place of rest in the midst of your experience as it is. Nothing needs to change. It's a bit like on a shoreless ocean with a lot of waves, and you have been caught in the waves until the beginning of the session, and now we are invited to follow our intuition into the vastness, into the stillness, with your whole being. Another image which is helpful for some people is to rest in the eye of the storm. If it's rather stormy on the conditioned level for yourself, rather challenging, there is also the eye of the storm, in inner presence and inner stillness and inner light, which is always there. And experience meditation as a receiving rather than a doing. Receiving sensations or receiving sounds. And you can relax. There's nothing you need to add, nothing you need to take away. Maybe the out breath can support you in softening and opening and letting go of the control freak. And with the in-breath, embracing, as if you give your inner life a hug, like hugging a friend. There's nothing you need to understand right now. You can't do this wrong, you can't do this right. Just being. And being happens by itself, effortlessly. And letting go of words, of concepts, as best as you can, of mental images. In a way, letting go of yourself for a moment. Not knowing what this is. Not knowing where you are. So you perceive your body not with a mental image, but as energy, directly. That which is flowing and that which is a bit tight or uncomfortable. And what I just said is also just words. So what happens if we let go of all these words? Of all these mental images? If something comes to the foreground within the felt sense of your body, something pleasant, something unpleasant, doesn't matter. Just perceive it as energy. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any name attached to it. It is already what it is. Some movement of energy, movement of chi, movement of prana. And you can appreciate the non-static, moment by moment changing flow. When you let go of the mental image of the body, that landscape of the energy of your body is so vast, you can't even find the boundaries. And notice how that whole field is moving with the breath. As if your whole body is breathing. Let everything flow where it wants to flow. Maybe things become a bit tighter, maybe some things open up. Just allow that to happen. It's all energy. There's nothing solid, nothing concrete. Now gravitate to a thought-free space, a wordless space. In the felt sense of your body. But leave also that word body, leave that behind you. If you notice that you want to get somewhere else or you want to get rid of something, sometimes it's possible to relax that grasping, to open that grasping, as if you're opening a fist. Everything happens by itself. How wonderful. Witnessing, the being aware, the being conscious is also effortless. It's not something you do. One of the core insights of Buddhist practice is that we suffer because we resist. So in this moment where there's less resistance, in this moment you're invited to let go of control. And it could be that then something opens up. And then appreciate that whatever you experience right now is an experience within awareness, within consciousness. Exactly like in a dream, where all the images in the dream, everything what happens in the dream are appearances within the consciousness of the dreamer. So in exactly the same way, what you feel, what you hear, also what you think, is an appearance within awareness, within consciousness. And that appearance is made from consciousness. It's made out of awareness. And when you look deeply at the appearances, then you see yourself. You realize yourself that there's nothing concrete, nothing solid there. The appearances don't have a core. They are more like a rainbow or like an image in the dream. They appear, in that way they are real. They appear, they are there. But at the same time, there's also nothing there. Nothing which you could put your finger on. The same way, if you would want to put your finger on a rainbow, there would be nothing there. Nevertheless, the rainbow is an appearance. So allow yourself to experience this non-solidity. Even of the things you might feel they are really heavy or sharp or a bit difficult to feel, perceive them as empty, empty of a core, empty of meaning. Like a rainbow is empty of being a rainbow. There's something there, but at the same time, there's nothing there. If there's still occasionally the sense of a mental image of the body or a mental image of the room you're in, your surroundings, a mental image of yourself as an I, just appreciate that these appearances within consciousness, within awareness, like all other appearances, all other experiences, your gender, your roles, past and future, even time, even being human, is an appearance within consciousness, within awareness. But what is here without words? What is here without memory? What is here if you realize you don't know what this is? Notice also processes within you or try to keep you on the ground. You get a little afraid or doubtful or Just notice these appearances. Or something, usually there's something there which wants to hold on, something which wants to know what this is, something which wants to know if you're doing it right, or which is saying you don't get it, or so just notice these as another appearance within consciousness, within awareness, something which comes and goes. And see if you can follow the longing of your heart and trust your intuition. Is there peace there? Is there stillness there? And with your whole being, you look into that, you stare into that direction. Or you gravitate towards it. And rely on not knowing, rely on stillness, rely on silence. So whatever your experience is right now, notice that there is a witnessing. And notice that you are conscious about the experience. You are aware. And that witnessing, that being conscious, that activity which is always there. The content changes, but the fact of witnessing, the fact of that you're conscious, that doesn't change. It's prior to all what appears. It is a context within which your appearance is being held. And in that context, in which your appearance is being held, there's no I there, there's no me there. There's no center there. You can't really say from where that witnessing or that being conscious or being aware where that is or where it comes from. It's a mystery. Of course, the rational mind might localize it in the brain or something like that. But right now, in your direct experience, and it's obvious that you're conscious right now, that you're aware right now, that you're witnessing. In the direct experience, you can't say where the source of that witnessing or that being conscious or being aware, where that is, where it comes from. It definitely doesn't come from an I, because I is an object within that context. Me, myself, all this is an appearance within that context of consciousness, of awareness, of witnessing. But even a curiosity towards the witnessing, awareness itself, consciousness itself, might open up something. There might be a bit of a shift. Yeah, and then take your time to slide out. Allow your eyes to open when you feel ready. And when you're opening your eyes after meditation, it's a really good moment to be aware how often we collapse back into separation. Whereas when we have the eyes closed, it's a bit easier to feel the boundarylessness of our being, the boundarylessness of our life, But then when we open your eyes, boom, suddenly we are the one who lives behind our eyes or in our chest. And we're looking through our eyes into a world which appears to be separate from us. But also the visual experience is an appearance within consciousness, within awareness. With eyes closed, exploring the energy in your body, you might quite naturally be led into a kind of non-dual experience. So the separation between you as the observer or the witness, this separation dissolves. But it is possible to have a taste like that also with open eyes. And maybe some of you have had experiences like that in nature. Yeah. There is that Zen poem. I'm not sure exactly what it says, but it's something like, I went to the mountains to meditate until there were only the mountains. Here in Denmark, I would say I went to the beach until there were only the beach. And experiences like that, where we kind of forget ourselves, they usually break into our life sometimes. Maybe you remember experiences like that also from childhood. Like this natural occurring experience where the I falls away, separation falls away. And the beautiful thing is, in this kind of experiences, we feel safe. And there's an opening of our heart, a care. Yeah. If you feel like this in a forest, it's natural that there is a care, a tenderness towards life around you, because you experience that you are part of that life. So verse 29, so we are still in the section of the 6 perfections, the 6 paramitas. And this is the 5th parameter, and that is meditative stability. And the last one then is wisdom. So I will read the first to you. Understanding that emotional reactions are dismantled by insight supported by stillness. Emotional reactions are dismantled, liberated, freed, deconstructed, let go of. Yeah. Emotional reactions are dismantled by insight, vipassana, yeah, insight, Laktong in Tibetan, that's insight into reality, insight into the 3 characteristics, insight into emptiness. So that's vipassana. So emotional reactions are dismantled by insight supported by stillness. So Tongme Sangpo talks about a very important point here, a point which also was very strongly made by Lama Tsongkhapa, that practices of stillness, stabilizing the mind, so what is called shamatha practice, is not a liberating practice. So the peace we experience through breathing meditation, through yoga, through whatever practices we do to stabilize the mind, to bring the mind into the present moment, that kind of peace is temporary. And it is not possible to maintain that peace in daily life. So we can have like really nice meditative experiences, because when our mind calms down, there's a moment with less problems, because in order to have problems, we need to think. Yeah? So if you don't think, I mean, if we wouldn't think right now, we wouldn't have any problem. And that would immediately affect our nervous system. Yeah, our nervous system is often in constant stress, but that needs to be maintained by thinking about problems. So if that falls away for a moment, in a yoga session, in a relaxation exercise, whatever we do to calm the mind, then our nervous system relaxes. And for animals, that's always the case. Yeah? Because they can't maintain problems. So any other mammal on this planet, when they are home in their nest, they relax. They are safe. Whereas we can be home in our nest in the night, in the bed, and be completely stressed by something which is going to happen, maybe going to happen tomorrow. So, and meditative stability just by itself is a good thing. I mean, it's good. It has many provisional benefits, but as soon as we are triggered, as soon as we go into our daily life, this kind of peace, this kind of stillness is gone. So it is not a stillness or a peace from where we can live from. There might be sometimes, well, quite often, like a kind of a bit of an aftermath. Yeah, maybe for, I don't know how long. Yeah, so you kind of, you feel the effect of a meditative stability, which you have practiced in the morning. You might feel it for a while, but usually after some more serious challenges, it's completely gone. So this is one of the traps we can fall into as a meditator, particularly when we're in retreat, like in long-term retreat. And that is something why Lama Tsongkhapa raised this point so strongly in his section about shamatha practice, really warning us to confuse that provisional stillness, that provisional peace, with something like liberation or awakening. It can feel like that, particularly if you are able, and that's what Tongme Sangpo is also referring to. He is referring to the four formless state, yeah, the four jhanas, which are which are meditative absorption, which are very, very subtle. So it's like it feels like you're entering a different dimension, a problem-free dimension, very subtle. And in the Tibetan tradition, these meditative absorptions, they are on the map, but they are not being practiced, because we can get lost into them. And it is said in the Tibetan tradition, if you get lost into them, after death, you are going to be even reborn into them. And then depending on which of these dimensions you have relaxed into, you can hang out there, completely useless, of course, Because if you can enter a jhana, you are useless. You can't even move your body. You can't go for work, to work or have a relationship in a jhana, because you are not, you don't have a body. It's just spacious, feels good. Initially, it's blissful, but it's not liberating. It doesn't reach to the root cause of suffering. It's not an antidote towards confusion. And it will collapse right there when you have a kid, or right there when you have a conflict with your partner. And then that what you thought was awakening or enlightenment is gone, because you have not addressed the fundamental confusion. So what is the remedy towards that fundamental confusion, that distortion of reality, which is the root cause of all the suffering? That is wisdom, here called insight. Yeah? So cultivate meditative stability that passes right by the four formless states. So the Tibetans, they have this map for cultivating that stability based on a text by Kamal el-Shila, the 9 stages, yeah? The 9 stages of cultivating stability. And that's where they stop. So they don't go further, because with the stability of the 9th stage, that is enough stability, meditative stability, to investigate into your experience, to bring insight into reality, into your meditative practice. Yeah, cultivate meditative stability that passes right by the four formless states. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So there is a lot to say, of course, about cultivating meditative stability. If you are, one thing I find a bit, I don't know, unsatisfactory within the Tibetan tradition, at least in the Gelug tradition, is that our teachers in the Gelug tradition, they are often scholars. They are not meditators. So they know all what is being said about developing shamatha, yeah? What is in the text. So they are scholars of that, and they can debate it, and they have memorized all this stuff and so on, and that's what they teach, but they don't meditate. So it's quite frustrating to try to get into a deeper practice of shamatha by listening to scholars, because you need to receive teachings from practitioners, from people who practice, who can really guide you. And in my case, that were monks from the Thai forest tradition, because they really meditate. They don't have exactly the same map as the Tibetans, so they don't talk about these 9 stages and things like that. But there's so many of the Thai forest monks, the Westerners I met, who far surpass in their meditative stability most of the practitioners I have met in the Tibetan tradition. So if you are interested in that, into a more practical manual into the practice of stability, I recommend the book by Culadasa, The Illuminated Mind, it's called. Culadasa with a C, yeah, Culadasa. The Mind Illuminated. And he is not from the Tibetan tradition, but he uses the root text of Kamalashila. So it's about the 9 stages, but from someone who has explored that material for like 30, 40 years. And for me, a few years ago, I kind of gave up on the shamatha project because it didn't work for me. Yeah? Even with long retreats. But then I realized it didn't work for me because I didn't get good instructions. I didn't get good guidance within the Tibetan tradition. And this book really was a game changer for me. I have a series of recordings on my SoundCloud profile where I teach this in a group in Malmö. So that was the only time I taught around the 9th stage. I go only to the 6th stage because I can't talk about something I don't know. But at least, so that would be maybe an interesting resource if you're interested in getting some new inspiration for the stabilization of the mind. I think it's called, the playlist is called Stages of Meditation or something like that. The book of Culadasa is quite a big book. Yeah, it's more for nerds. Yeah? But maybe there's some nerds here, and it's really helpful. Then what I also want to say here is there is also the practice of shamatha without object. So that's something you might not hear about within the Gelug tradition. But it is very common in the teachings of the Kagyu Nyingma tradition. So they would also start with some kind of light shamatha with object. So shamatha with object means you have a primary meditation object, and it's pretty straightforward. Like, I mean, if you have the breath, so you bring your attention to the breath and you figure out how to stay engaged with that throughout the meditation session. Yeah, so that's the process. So shamatha without object is in a way it's easier, but it's also for a complete beginner in meditation maybe not the first move. Yeah, because it's easy to get into a kind of spaced out daydreaming kind of state, and then saying, yeah, I practice choiceless open awareness or panoramic awareness or shamatha without object. So the image here for shamatha without object is if you have a glass of water and there's mud inside, and it's stirred. So the water symbolizes the natural clarity of your mind. So a good way to bring forth the clarity of the water is just to sit the glass down and step back, and the mind settles by itself. So that's a bit the idea in shamatha without object. So it's a non-manipulating, non-fixing, non-controlling, allowing practice. and it's called without object. But there is an object. So what's the object? The object is everything, including the space within which everything is moving. So the object is the context and the content of your mind. And it's beautiful. Also for some people, it's like who have been trying to do some stabilizing meditation for maybe some years, and they're frustrated by it, and they put too much effort into it. No, that's one of the challenges in shamatha practice, is that we might think it has something to do with concentration, like kind of controlling the mind and staying engaged with the object through effort, and that's completely mistaken approach to this practice. So sometimes when people then are introduced to the practice of openness, open awareness, shamatha without object, is such a relief, and they might touch possibilities of stillness which they never had experienced through the other approach. So that's the stillness, yeah? Insight supported by stillness. So, and usually the approach is first you work a bit on the stillness, and then you bring into the vipassana, the insight meditation approach. So one of the, in the Theravada tradition, vipassana practice is being described as an insight into the three characteristics. And the first insight is anicca or anicca, the impermanence, the non-static nature, the vibrational flowing nature of everything. So let's say you have the breath as your meditation object, as your primary meditation object. And there's so many ways to practice breathing meditation. So if you feel somehow bored or stuck with your breathing meditation, just listen to different kind of instructions around breathing meditation. It's really so helpful if you keep your practice alive and changing, and you try different things, and you look from there and here and look different ways. And so keep it alive. Don't settle with something, okay, so this is my breathing meditation, and follow some instructions for 10 years or something. And so that's not a living practice. It's something alive, a meditation practice. Yeah? And a little instruction can make a big difference. You know, like I remember some times ago I've heard this instruction by one meditation teacher. Notice the nurturing quality of your breath. Notice your nurturing quality of the breath. And that immediately like made my mind curious. Yeah. Like, and so the nurturing quality of your breath, what do they mean? And where do I feel it? And that of course then supports the shamatha practice. And one of the mental factors which really support and are most important in the practice of shamatha, the practice of meditative stability, is that you're curious, that you're fascinated, because then your mind goes there. That's natural that your mind goes into the direction where you're curious. And for me, and there's many other instructions which have been, who did that for me. Yeah, that suddenly I was a beginner again. So let's say you do the shamatha with the breath. That's yeah, but with the breath, I also want to say something there. For some people, the breath is not a good meditation object. So, and you can start to notice that when you notice when you make a breath your primary meditation object, that it always feels uncomfortable. It always feels a little scary. It's not something you fall in love with. Yeah, it's something you do because you think you should, but it's actually nothing you are naturally drawn to, because it always comes together with some difficult experience. And that's because breath is connected with anxiety for some people. It's connected with trauma, so it's connected with, so it's not the best object for everyone. So, and the good news is, it doesn't matter what object. So it can be an object of the five senses, whatever it is. So you can choose actually an object you like, instead of something where you feel like resistance towards. Because it is good when the shamatha practice is something you enjoy. I mean, that's maybe not all the time, but more and more. Yeah. So then we need to experiment a bit. What kind of object is suitable for me? So the primary meditation object, the breath. So how does that turn into a vipassana practice? It's not like a big change. Like, I mean, you do kind of the same thing. Yeah. It's not like, so vipassana and shamatha, conceptually, you can divide them from each other, but practically you can't. So whenever you do a shamatha practice, usually there is already a bit of a vipassana practice in it, yeah, because you can't help yourself when you are engaged with a primary meditation object. You can't help yourself. You start to look deeper, yeah. So you start to recognize, wow, the breath is changing moment by moment. Every breath is different. It's all energy, yeah. So, but when you emphasize the vipassana aspect, then you would have a different kind of intention in your meditation. So you would bring that maybe like a bit of a teaching into the non-static nature of phenomena. So I did this in our meditation at one point when I said, notice that everything is changing, that everything is flowing, that everything is vibrating. So that was an instruction, a vipassana instruction. Yeah. In the Tibetan tradition, when they talk about vipassana, they use the word vipassana only for the meditation on emptiness. So, and here the twofold emptiness, the emptiness of the object. And in our meditation, there were a bit instruction like that. Yeah. So I said something like, whatever you experience is an appearance within consciousness, and it is made out of consciousness, and it has no core. There is no solidness in it. Yeah. So it's like a dream. It's like a rainbow. So this kind of instructions, they are supposed to help us to recognize the insubstantial nature of the objects of awareness. And if you go deeper into that, it's amazing, because what happens, what slowly starts to happen, you actually see outer objects in a different way. I mean, you You don't need to run around and say, oh, this is all a dream, this is like a dream. You see it like that. It's a huge difference. You actually perceive things more transparent. Actually, you might start to wonder, why the heck can't I walk through walls? Because they are not there. Yeah, there's nothing there. So you really, at that moment, you notice that you start to walk lighter through life. It's just everything is less heavy. Your body is less heavy. The things around you are less heavy. People are less heavy. You know, they are not so concrete. They are not so so out there. You know, they're more transparent. They become more transparent, lighter. And of course, that's also very true for emotional contractions. Yeah. So you start to see, well, they are energy. It's not, you might still be triggered as before, maybe a little less also, but somehow they are lighter. You see them as lighter. You know, they are not so, oh, my grief or my fear, and it's also concrete and all the stories. And there's like we tend to solidify. You know, we have this tendency to solidify everything. Yeah, but so when we talk about emotions, we tend to solidify them. So, and if you start to look into your inner life with the Vipassana touch, then things become lighter. You start to travel lighter through your emotional landscape. So that's the emptiness of the objects. And so twofold emptiness. So the other emptiness, which we'll look into in the Tibetan tradition, we look into the emptiness of the I, the me. So it's starting to have this recognition. There is no you there. There's no you in you. Yeah. There's no you in you. There is no solid separate core. Like so you start to see that there's processes, of course, you know, there's your conditioning and you know, so that's so, and you start to see that as empty, so the conditioning, the processes, the parts of you, yeah. But here with that kind of insight, you start to see that there is no center. It's centerlessness. It's centerless. It's centerless. And in the Gelug tradition, based on the writings on Lama Tsongkhapa, they have a specific way of that kind of vipassana practice. I can just mention it. So the first step here is what is called to identify the object of refutation. So the first step is to get an understanding and then also an experience of that which is not, that which is an illusion, that which does not exist. Yeah, which takes some time, and it's an important exploration, because obviously we are not refuting the person. We are not refuting the personality or something like that. We are refuting the you which is in the person. There is no you in the person. There's no center in the person. So it's important to reflect a bit on that and get some teachings, so that when we then do the second step, which is we go for a search for that. Yeah. So we get a sense of what is meant, and then we search for it, because if it exists, it has to be somewhere, and the place where we look, the house we are looking for, that me, that I, is the 5 aggregates: body, mind. Yeah, so that's what we look for. So this is a bit like, imagine you have a house and you have a suspicion that there's a thief in the house. Yeah, so now the house is the 5 aggregates. The thief is the mini-me, which is an illusion. But you are convinced there is a thief in the house. So in your meditation then, what you do is you search the house. You go into all the rooms. And here we have 5 rooms, yeah, the 5 aggregates. But each of them has separate cupboards, yeah? So it's not just 5 rooms, they are full of cupboards where you are, and you have to open every door, yeah? So that's why you study the 5 aggregates and the 51 mental factors. You don't study them to have a new list in your life. You study them because they describe the cupboards we're looking into, yeah? And we need to be thorough in our search. So in order to search the house for a thief, you need to have some idea what a thief is. Otherwise, how would you come to the conclusion there's no thief in the house if you have no idea what a thief is? So before you look into the, and of course we already have an idea what a thief is, but let's imagine you don't know what a thief is. You have, is this a human being? Is it a ghost? What is a thief? Yeah, so you need to have some idea. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to search the house, because you couldn't come to the conclusion that there is no thief in the house. So, and that's what you clarify first. What is actually the object of refutation, the object of negation? And then you search. And with each room you open, there is this bit of a relief. There's no thief in the house. And then you will go to the next room. There is no thief in the house. So, and you go through everything, even the basement. You look everywhere. And then you realize, wow, there is no thief in the house. That's the moment where all fears disappear. Because it's the imagined I, which is the one which feels threatened. So if the I is recognized as a merely hallucination, a merely made up by mind, merely labeled, Lama Zopa uses this word, merely labeled, it exists merely labeled, then you travel very, very light through life, because there's nothing here which can be hid. Unfortunately, it's not enough to do this once. So even if you have searched the house intellectually and also in meditation, and you kind of have conceptually understand that there's no you in you, there's only you, but there's no you in you. So we are not saying that you don't exist. We're just saying there is no you in you. We're also not saying there is no personality. There is a personality, but there is nobody having that personality. So that makes this approach a bit challenging, because at one point intellectually it doesn't take a PhD to understand there's no I. You know, it's not that difficult to grasp intellectually. And then, but then even if you do this kind of meditations and you don't find it, you have to do it probably for like 10 years or something like that. Because the instinct of grasping to that thief is so strong. And and usually, except in very rare occasions, but I wouldn't put my money onto that, it's sufficient to see it once, and then that's it. But for most people, it's like a kind of gradual undermining of that confusion. Okay. There's still some time left, so if there's a question or a comment. Yeah, someone posted the mind illuminated, so it's a good book to have in a shelf. Yeah. Is there anything? Yes, Rumi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Just very simple, few words to describe something that was hard to make sense of in an exciting way. I kept finding a feeling of behind, like when I don't, towards the end of the practice, when you were pointing us toward context where all the arisings are,
Yes.
I just kept sensing being behind myself.
Yes.
Actually behind myself.
Yeah. Right.
Which was, but then I would think, what is behind? Like, then it would collapse somehow. But so in a way, behind was a home, a place to land, but it was not a place I expected I would land. And very hard to describe.
Yes, but I recognize that. I think that it's a good direction to be curious about that and to look at that behind, or feel that behind, what you describe as behind, because it is this is a frustrating, and sometimes people struggle with that for a long time, this question, what is aware? Who is experiencing this? So because they don't know how to look or where to look, yeah? But sometimes I actually give the instruction, feel behind, yeah? Like feel behind. So usually many people, when they meditate towards the front, yeah, like, like it's like
the eyes.
It's like visualization and stuff like this. They seem to be in the front, but also in other meditation, in breathing meditation, there seems to be the tendency in front, yeah. So sometimes when I give instruction, I invite people to feel behind. What is there? Look behind. And in that way, they can also, I think, get a taste of what is with looking a mind here. What means looking here? When I say, the word looking, what does that actually mean? With what do we look? But bring your awareness behind you. That's actually a good pointer to how to look, and also where to look. And then, of course, the conceptual mind, like you said, also it collapses. Yeah, that's how it is. It always collapses. Yeah, but there is this, because the conceptual mind comes in and gives a commentary or something like that, or tries to figure out what was it, this or something. But one has to just insist. So what is behind? What is behind? Or to get to fall back into that, what you called the behind, and to use it and to do it again and again, and then maybe with time, slowly there could be a bit more resting there, and even a bit more investigation of that. Yeah, is there somewhere there? Is there someone there in the behind?
Mm-hmm.
Is there an I there in the behind? And maybe there is in the beginning a sense of a subtle observer me, yeah, kind of. But what's behind that? Yeah.
Thank you.
In the Zen tradition, they call that the what? Step, yeah, stepping behind, something like that. Yeah. Making a step backward, making a step backward. Tara Brach also uses that in her book True Refuge as the one method, making a step backward and backward and backward. Yeah, this is also helpful when you have positive experiences in your meditation. Yeah, like something opens up, and then there might be a bit of a sense, wow, I'm getting somewhere. This is the experience of oneness I'm looking for. Yeah. So enjoy that. That's also good. Soak that in. That's fine to rest with that a bit. But it's more interesting in terms of awakening than also with positive experience to direct your curiosity towards stepping backwards. And sometimes that stepping backwards is supposed to be triggered by the question, who is experiencing this? What is experiencing this? Who is aware? What is aware? But as I said, for some people, that kind of instruction doesn't make sense for years. It's just frustrating for them. They don't know what to do. Okay. I think, Jennifer, you wanted to say something? No? Okay.
I think I think Philip had his hand first, and I don't know if we have time for my question,
Yeah.
which is not a problem.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Philip.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And this is real fast. So what you're speaking about now, this is what Ken MacLeod is talking about when he says, rest in the looking, look in the
Yeah.
resting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Thanks.
yes, but that's also, I mean, we are talking about something undescribable. So so maybe for some people that these two lines you mentioned, they are helpful. It's more like listening to that like a poem, or just seeing the response. So it's not something to intellectually kind of try to grasp, or is it helpful for you, that instruction, Philip?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Although it took me a while to figure out what he was talking about.
Yeah, you can't figure out what he's talking about. That's the thing. But you can experience it. And then when you start to have a taste of that, then when you read the sentence, you think, yeah, all right. If I would want to say something about this in just 2 sentences, I might pick these words. But when you say them, you feel, no, this is actually not it, because I can't really describe the experience. That's also what Romy said. Yeah? So I can't really say what I mean. Yeah, I can't, like, to say make a backward step. With what? Who is stepping back? In what? Yeah. But when you have a taste of it, yeah, it feels like stepping backward, right? If I would want to describe it to someone, I might choose these words, knowing that they are not really accurate. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Jennifer. if you have something.
Yes, thank you. It's sort of a practical question, but I have a friend who's very naturally open and loving, and she has sort of the boundarylessness. But what's winding up happening is she winds up attracting people who are sort of like vampires, and they sort of like feed off of the energy, and they sort of don't let her alone. And actually, one of them attacked her recently, and this tremendous anger comes up. And so I'm just wondering how to support her, or what someone in that situation might do to protect their boundaries while in a conventional sense, while feeling boundarylessness, and how to maintain a love while doing that.
You could tell her to practice Yamantaka. It's a wrathful deity in the tantric tradition, where you also as in all the tantric practices, you surround yourself by protectors, by swirling swords and fences, and I mean, there's a lot what could be said to that. I mean, that seems to be it could be that it is a person who has never learned actually to express the energy of anger, the energy of aggression in a healthy way, and is very afraid of doing so. And then on top, maybe she is some kind of spiritual practitioner, where that kind of behavior seems to be the right thing to do. But often, the niceness of people is a kind of neurotic niceness. It's not a niceness which comes from fullness. It's not a niceness which comes from self-love and compassion. It's a niceness which is cultural. I was always the nice girl, or that was her strategy to survive or be loved by a father or something like that. So often that kind of kindness and love, and sometimes they genuinely appear as loving people, but it's a love which still belongs to the conditioned self. So it's an empathic part, a loving part, and a loving part, a compassionate part, which belongs to the conditioned self, is neurotic. It has agenda. It wants to manipulate. It's disappointed when it doesn't get back what it wants through its love, through its compassion. So it is a kind of compassion which is covering up a fear of your own boundaries and your rights and your needs, and and that's quite a journey to learn how to explore anger, a lot of self-reflection, and then also replacing more and more this inauthentic compassion and love with more and more an authentic and healthy love, a healthy compassion. And a healthy compassion is not stupid. A healthy love is not stupid. Now, that's why Trungpa Rinpoche calls, it's a bit too tough, the word, but he calls the other kind of compassion idiot compassion, idiot love. So, and it's not a bad thing. Of course, it's good. I mean, we wouldn't have any nurses in the hospitals without these kinds of compassionate parts, and but it's not sustainable. And so it's not about like attacking these parts or being ashamed of them, but one could through the practice of self-compassion, self-love, self-nurturing, actually fill up the empty cup in your heart, yeah, so that it can flow over. Instead of trying with compassionate action and loving action, hoping that other people will fill up the cup. Yeah. Nobody can do that. It will never happen. You can be the kindest person in the world. Other people, that's not the job of other people to fill up your cup. And of course, a compassion which is wanting to, a compassion which is an expression of your hope that other people will fill your cup. It's not really it's not the compassion we talk about in the Buddhist tradition. So martial art, boxing.
She relied on that actually, because a
Yeah.
guy was attacking her. This is New York. And then she
Yeah.
used her martial arts skills. But I think
Yeah,
she has
and-
so much anger now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yes, and it's of course it's in a way it's terrible that somehow we attract the people and situations which on a positive side could help us to address what we need to address. Yeah. On a difficult side is we tend to be re-traumatized because we are drawn to the same situation. So if we don't do the inner work, then it's just like we attract people who attack us, yeah, because that's the karmic, that's how karma works. We continue to be drawn to situations like this, and people spot us out. Yeah. Okay, I hope that was helpful.
Very much. Thank you. Many more questions, but to be continued.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a few years more, Jennifer. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes, so let's do a short just sharing of the positive energy. So from a centerlessness, boundarylessness, so waves in the ocean kind of sense, then we can wholeheartedly share the goodness of this meeting with the whole world, with all beings, like ripples of light going out from this meeting. And maybe you want to include particular people who are in crisis. And then the FBMT and the wishes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa. And then also our own path. So may this moment illuminate and inspire our own path to awakening. Okay. Thank you very much.